Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry for starting late. We're getting caught up on a lot of information. We are monitoring the emergence of some additional cases throughout the Mid-Hudson region, and we'll keep you posted on that. Nothing to be yet concerned about, but we are monitoring the continued transmission of the disease, and it is a good opportunity for me, again, to remind you that we strongly discourage large social gatherings. I know that we've had these conversations before, but the expectation that we keep social gatherings to a minimum, that if you're going to an activity, a party, a 4th of July event, you want to stay with people and interact with people that you know are just not ill. And if you are ill, if you have tested positive, remember that you are to quarantine. If you've come into contact with people, they deserve to know whether or not they may have come into contact with you, and they too are encouraged to isolate so as not to transmit the disease. And we strongly, again, continue to encourage that. And we do encourage you to wear face covering. And again, the concept is when you can't engage in social distancing, if you can wear a face covering, it helps to protect you and someone else and limits the transmission of the disease. So good afternoon. Today is actually our 25th Facebook Live town hall. As you know, we've been doing these 2 times a week. And as I mentioned when we got together yesterday, we'll be going to one Facebook Live town hall per week starting next week around lunchtime. So next week, starting Wednesday around lunchtime, we'll be decreasing the number of town halls to one per week, which gives me an opportunity to ask that you join me in thanking our American Sign Language interpreters. You'll see both of them over the course of my rambling this afternoon. And they've done a wonderful job, obviously keeping up with me and some others, and we hope that you would join us in saying thank you. Did I do that? Thank you. I didn't learn enough, but I've learned that. Thanks very much. So let's get started. If you get to the county's dashboard, you'll see updated data points. Do want to mention where we are. 7 individuals hospitalized in Dutchess County with COVID-19. We have seen 151 individuals succumb to the disease over these last several months. We have conducted now 60,652 tests with 4,213 confirmed positive cases. Now, all of our data points downward, which is very good, very positive for us. We're at currently tracking or monitoring 179 active cases in Dutchess County. As we conduct the last of our twice per week town halls, just as an aside, the Dutchess County dashboard, so the dashboard that we've been using to provide you this data, has been up and running since March the 30th. We have seen approximately 934,000 visits to the Dutchess dashboard, 934,000 visits to the Dutchess dashboard, and 1.1 million views on the COVID homepage. So despite the fact that the page has only been up for several months, 1.1 million views on the COVID-related homepage on the county's website, and 78,000 views on Restarting Dutchess since opening in May. So 78,000 views on the Restarting Dutchess page. We hope this information remains important and useful to you. We encourage you to continue to visit. So to recap a little, we launched our hotline, as you know, the COVID-19 or coronavirus hotline here in Dutchess. We're grateful to the volunteers and staff who have kept it in operation for 116 days. So for 116 days, we have received and conducted nearly 8,000 calls. So 8,000 calls over those 116 days. We provide and have provided service in 10 different languages. And all of this began on site for the first 36 days of the hotline, and for the remaining 79 or so days, we have been able to operate this hotline remotely, meaning individuals off-site being able to provide that service. As I mentioned, we started the hotline with Medical Reserve Corps volunteers. Very grateful to all of you who have volunteered. About 75% of the operation was staffed by the Medical Reserve Corps. and now we're at about 50-50. So about half of the staff is MRC and half are county employees. And again, the goal here for us has been to make sure that you've been heard, that you've been responded to, and very clearly that we're listening, you're loved, and you're cared for. And that message was part of the actual training with the staff. The goal here was not to have a situation where we just say, sorry, we can't help you, or you got stuck not being able to get information. The goal was, and the volunteers conducted this, and staff engaged in this, you're listened to, you're heard, you're cared for, you're loved, and we're here to help. And so I'd ask you to join me in thanking all of them. And of course, you can continue to reach out to that number. It functions a bit more through an automated system, but we're very, very grateful that we had so many participate. At the same time, and I mentioned this yesterday, Dutchess Responds, our food connection, has served more than 14,000 meals over 14 weeks with volunteers and Office for the Aging staff and partnerships with so many others. We've received over 660 inquiries with now 600 households served, and we're grateful to those who have donated both as volunteers and finances to make the Dutchess Responds Food Connection work. And if you do have resources, and I know that everyone is strained a little bit, but if you do have additional resources, we encourage you to visit Dutchess Responds at the dutchessny.gov website. And if you'd like to contribute, we still are accepting donations. Those dollars still go to help people who may be without access to enough food and support as the pandemic continues to move along. And we're grateful again for all of our volunteer support and our partnership with a number of not-for-profit organizations, and notably in this case, the Community Foundations of the Hudson Valley, Dutchess Outreach, and the Dutchess Community Action Partnership. And we're grateful for their partnership in bringing about the Dutchess Responds Food Connection. Very important service we've been able to provide these 100-plus days. Also, as you know, we have been advocating and fighting for small businesses. They make the backbone of our economy. 70% of new jobs are created by existing small businesses in a community, and they're so critically important to the fabric of this community and to the economy. And we know that many businesses have been certainly stressed significantly these last 100-plus days, and still the challenges remain. In partnership with the Dutchess County Regional Chamber of Commerce, we're grateful to them and to Frank Costella and the staff there. We launched the Dutchess Business Notification Network. We've been communicating with nearly 10,000 businesses and not-for-profit organizations across the county daily, providing updates with new guidance, new direction, answering some questions, and of course trying to respond to as many concerns as folks have. We have hosted together the delivery and supply of personal protection equipment, along with a series of webinars meant to provide assistance to our small business community, and we're grateful for that. If you have a question, please write it in the comment section below. As I said, we're going to be live again with you around lunchtime next Wednesday, so this will be it for this week. What can we do, Denise asks, about places openly violating the mask mandate? First, if you have complaints, and I'll say this up front, if you have a complaint regarding any of the guidance that you believe, and I'll say whether you believe you understand the guidance or not, you can always go to the New York Forward website. The New York Forward website is where you would register a concern. That is then screened to determine whether or not it is truly a violation of any one of these orders. And then, as I've said many, many times, what we do in this county is attempt to respond to complaints without first being punitive. The goal here has always been to seek compliance and cooperation in a considerate and collaborative way. So our staff and others will reach out to a business owner, reach out to a particular individual, explain what the guidance is, and ask that they comply. And we've had nearly universal compliance with our requests. So as it relates to masks, please wear a face covering. This is not a political statement. I understand that there are those who believe they know the science and they believe that they have reason not to, and there's reasons why you may choose not to. If you cannot engage in physical distancing, we are asking that you continue to make use of a mask unless you have an underlying ailment or disability that might preclude you from wearing one. And that is the expectation under the governor's order. which, as I said, begins with this very basic expectation that if you cannot engage in physical distancing and you're out among groups of people, to wear a face covering. I have one that was donated by the New York Mets. It will be the only time that I will ever be able to say that I'm wearing a Mets uniform. So I'm actually very happy to wear this particular face covering. But that said, if you have an underlying ailment, like magic, it appears. This is the New York Mets face covering. New York Mets face covering. As I said, the only time I might ever wear a Mets uniform, although these days I might play as well as the team generally plays, but as a lifelong Mets fan, I'm happy to have that face covering. But the expectation is if you cannot engage in that social distancing, we ask you to wear the face covering. If you have an underlying ailment or disability, you are not required to. But remember that a business can choose not to serve individuals who are not wearing a face covering. So if the business has made that decision, they have right to do that under the executive order. They are, however, they are required to reasonably accommodate an individual who may not be able to wear a face covering because of an illness. That does not mean, as I have seen on Facebook or social media or television, that you get to go storming into a grocery store and start throwing products into or out of your grocery cart. It means that you are to inform the business and they are to provide you some alternative means, which could be curbside, it could be drive up, it could be a particular time where you might be able to access those goods or services if you have an underlying ailment. It's a good reminder for me to say, be kind. For the love of God, please be kind. At the end of the day, I know that we are all stressed. I accept the fact that there are a lot of people angry for a lot of reasons, both things that are within our control and things that are outside of our control. I understand that. Believe me, I do. I try, as we do in this county government, to respond to your concerns as openly and carefully and deliberately as possible. Some of you get upset that we don't react with as much fire as you want us to. I assure you that we are advocating for this community very fiercely, but at the same time, it is not my goal to incite anger among people. It is my goal simply to respond to your questions as effectively as I can, and that's been really our practice. So if you have a concern regarding a violation of any of the rules or guidances, you can go to dutchessny.gov. There is a link to the New York Forward page. You can register a concern or complaint, but you are always within your power to say in a very polite way to someone whether or not they know what the guidance is. If you don't know what the guidance is, I would suggest that, perhaps, you read up on them as well. But you can always ask somebody to try to comply. We don't ask you to do that. We're not looking for you to enforce the rules. But there's always the sort of social interaction that is still okay. And to those of you who might not like being asked, please don't react in an angry way. There are ways to communicate with one another that do not require us to yell or snap at each other. Sean asked, are bars and restaurants allowed to have dance floors when they book bands and DJs? When will wedding halls with dance floors be allowed? The short answer to the first half of the question is, they can have a dance floor, you just can't use it. Currently, the expectation for bars and restaurants is 50% indoor capacity. We'll begin phase 4 on Tuesday, July the 7th. 50% internal capacity. There is the ability to have sort of background entertainment, but that entertainment cannot lead to dancing and sort of concert activities, right? In the areas where we have the most concern regarding transmission, and we've seen this in the states that have seen an increase in transmission, they are not all seeing equal increases in hospitalizations, but those increases in cases are likely linked more to sort of social interaction in a bar or restaurant or a concert venue that's enclosed, and those are the concerns that most have. Now, again, if there is to be any entertainment at a particular business, it is merely to be not an attractive nuisance, and it is not to be something that you engage then in sort of the dancing. And I hate to say this, I really do, because I'd love people just to be able to go about their lives, but we want to be safe about this. That is not currently permitted. Now, as far as wedding venues, the short answer is we don't know. The governor and the state has said that we should be seeing guidance. We have yet to see that guidance, so there is no guidance. What I can tell you is for wedding venues and sort of those kinds of events, we are actively and aggressively supporting the concept that some of this can happen in a safe way. Just as you can now go to a restaurant and socially distance, you could have certain wedding-like activities without engaging in sort of that higher risk activity that could lead to the transmission of the disease. That said, there is no current guidance that is new on wedding or wedding venues. And I know many of you have asked. I know many of you are likely typing. I know some of you have reached out to the media. There is not a county answer to this question. No county in the state has the independent authority to set some new standard. It is all governed by the governor's state of emergency declaration. This is power that he had under the current law, New York State executive law, and it was augmented by a decision of the state legislature. So if you have a concern regarding those venues, we don't have any guidance for you as of yet. We are asking and we are advocating, but there is no updated information on that. I know how frustrating it is. Jason, can municipal, non-travel, competitive rec league sports games begin in Phase 4? Jason, that may have been the most detailed question we've gotten in 25 town hall meetings. Any competitive rec league, so let's do this. Let me try to give you the right answer here. Rec activities, sports activities can already commence officially on Monday if they are low risk. So low risk is identified by the state of New York. Generally, that's baseball, softball, soccer, non-contact related sports. That non-contact lacrosse, but not contact lacrosse. Apparently, there's a difference. I do know the difference, but contact-related sports cannot begin competition. I'll get to that in a minute. Any sport activity that is identified as low to medium risk by the state, which is generally those that I've mentioned, non-contact, but it's soccer, it's baseball, it's field hockey, tennis, I mean, go down the list. That can all commence competitions and everything else on Monday, July the 6th. That is permitted to proceed, whether it's municipal or not municipal. They can have those programs begin on Monday, excuse me, Monday, July the 6th. Somebody's going to ask somebody to get me water. I can tell. Somebody usually watches and says, please get that man water. That can begin on Monday, July 6th. Contact-related sports, lacrosse, football, contact lacrosse, football, basketball, they can begin non-contact practices on Monday. So if you're doing drills that don't require that sort of close interaction, you can do practices beginning Monday the 6th. Competitions can begin Monday the 6th. We do know and we are aware that there are leagues who have been conducting practices. Some may even have games. I can tell you that it is not our intention on Thursday, July the 2nd to start chasing down rec leagues, but the rule is Monday, July the 6th. All of those activities can commence. And if you have a question regarding whether or not your municipality is engaging in that, you should reach out to the town, village, or city. Some have decided not to have those programs, and some are permitting them, and they have that right if it is a municipally run activity. Jeff, why did local towns go back to meeting in town halls instead of Zoom? Jeff, I'm going to say this carefully because I don't want to put towns, villages, and cities in a bind. However, they are permitted to have in-person meetings so long as they can engage in the physical distancing, and meaning people participating engage in the physical distancing, and they are required then to limit capacity. Our advice to municipalities, and I've said this to supervisors and mayors on the calls we've had, if you have in-person meetings, and if you think that is in any way limiting the participation from the public, you should still enable some sort of virtual opportunity for people to monitor, watch, and participate to whatever degree they allow in those meetings. But they are permitted because New York State says they're permitted to have in-person meetings. But I strongly discourage municipalities from having meetings that might elicit enormous public participation if they're doing one or the other. They have to at least have the capacity for both. So if you're having some in person and you're having a virtual means for the public to participate, that works if you're having an engaged conversation and you might want greater public involvement. In fact, the county legislature, I think, is doing just that. They're going to meet in person, and they're also going to continue to stream live so that you can interact in both ways. But again, they are permitted to do that under state law, under the state guidance, and some have decided to return to physical meetings. But again, we've encouraged that they maintain some sort of virtual presence to allow for those who may not want to get to a meeting or may not be able to because of physical distancing or capacity issues to participate. Brenda, what's the consequence for those who refuse to cooperate with contact tracers? Well, there's an extreme here, and it's being exercised in Rockland County. The county executive Ed Day spoke about this just yesterday. I think there was a response to a cluster identified in Rockland County. Contact tracing generally begins in a volunteer effort. We call you, we contact you, we talk to you about individuals you may have come into contact with. We contact them. We encourage they get tested. We encourage that they take steps to preclude the transmission of the disease. If there is a real concern, meaning that this is a case with multiple contacts that may have broad implications in the community, the health department and the Commissioner of Health, New York State Commissioner of Health, Dutchess County Commissioner of Health, Rockland County Commissioner of Health, does have the authority to take legal action to compel one's engagement in protecting the public health. Nobody wants to do that. So we are deadly serious about this. The goal here is to simply say to folks, we need you to respond, we need to talk with you just to give you the guidance, and we need you to comply to the extent you can to slow the transmission of the disease. But the ultimate extreme is that a health department can take action to subpoena individuals or to impose legal penalties. That is not the desire. That is not the hope. And we, to date, have had relatively good cooperation and compliance with those expectations. Gene, in Phase 4, is the 50-person limit outdoor only or inside too? Great question. Indoors is generally 50% capacity. There are some limitations on some activities inside, but inside generally in Phase 4 is 50% capacity. The 50 number is for social activities. So you and I, if I wouldn't suggest it necessarily, but if you want to go to have a social activity or a social event of some kind, that limitation is up to 50 people. That is not, however, limited inside. Inside is a capacity number that's established, and generally speaking, that is about 50%. Heather, any updates on splashdown? No, although we had a very long conversation with health department officials at the state level, and I am not satisfied that they have any science, any methodology, or any data to point to why a facility like that would be closed, yet massive municipal pools are open. And there are pools, by the way, in New York State that look a heck of a lot more like splashdown than they do pools. The other, of course, is we know that there are states that have opened these. Ohio is a good one. We've monitored the transmission of the disease. Nobody can point to a transmission concern at a chlorine-filled environment, and it's logical as to why that might be. We've asked the state to look at Ohio's guidance, but today, New Jersey and Connecticut now are all open those water parks. Now, we get it. We understand that certain amusements, not necessarily a great idea or an environment, but could certain aspects of splashdown be open? Yes, we think they could, and still monitor and ultimately slow the transmission of the disease. We're going to keep you updated, but no, there is no guidance yet for facilities like splashdown in the state. We've been promised guidance for 10 days now, so we're still waiting, and we're hopeful the state comes forward with some guidance on that. Susan, will schools be open this fall? I am not the person that can tell you definitively that answer, but I do think every effort is being made to evaluate opening and providing students in-person education. There are a couple of reasons. One, we know the absolute value of having young people appear in person and interact with their teachers, and that is critical in the delivery of good quality education. That in-person relationship cannot be replaced. The second, of course, is that we can't have students, young people, home and expect families to be able to get back to work. So there's an economic concern. The state is surveying. The state is evaluating. The governor did say several days ago that it is their hope and their sort of expectation that they're beginning, from the perspective that students should return and trying to figure out a way to make that work. We certainly have been providing assistance to schools, and we certainly will provide what guidance and advice we can to the state, but this is entirely a New York State Education Department decision that will ultimately get made. Alicia, I never got a survey about schooling. Who would have come from? It is likely your school district would have administered a survey. If you haven't, it doesn't mean that they missed you. It may mean they haven't done it. It may mean that they've chosen not to do it. They're not mandated to do it. I think they are being asked to survey families. You may want to reach out to the administration of your particular school districts. June, any updates on wedding venues? I did answer that. No update yet on wedding venues, and that I promise you has been a bone of contention for us. We've been expecting guidance. We understand the concern, and believe me, what we would say is the transmission increases and the places we've seen them have engaged principally in that kind of sort of enclosed environment, socialization in sort of close proximity in an enclosed environment. We believe there are certainly ways to conduct a wedding event safely, but the state has yet to provide guidance on that, and we are waiting. KT, any word on family courts opening yet? What about all the construction going on? Well, that's two very different questions. First, no update on in-person services at the family court as of yet. Remember, even though it's called the Dutchess County Family Court, it is still, however, administered by the New York State Office of Court Administration. These are actually New York State employees, and there is not yet a final determination. Now, they are doing more cases and services, however, not a clear answer on yet on when they intend to sort of do more in-person activities. When you're asking about construction, there's a lot of activity going on. Construction was deemed essential some time ago. It's a permitted activity. Certainly, individuals are asked to be safe, but we want people to safely go back to working and conducting business, and part of that is certainly construction. Elizabeth, OPWDD. And support for kids with special needs in school this fall. Well, so we're very concerned about what we're hearing from OPWDD in limitations of funding, potential cuts, withholding funds, and limiting services. I am deeply disturbed by the way in which the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities has been conducting the critical work that they're required to provide in supporting those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So I'd offer to you that we're going to continue to advocate, but I don't have any updates yet. Those are decisions that will be made at the state level. If they become clear and problematic, at one of our town hall meetings, I'll be happy to provide you what information we have and how to be in touch with those who might have impact. You should reach out to your state legislators as a means of expressing your concern. Again, we expect schools right now are at least trying. I think the state of New York is expecting to they're beginning the conversation about going back to school with the understanding that kids going to school is better than them not going to school physically, and they're trying to make those decisions with the guidance. And those with special education needs would be treated with the same equity that other students would be provided. Jen, how are you keeping track of people coming here from other states with high numbers? The short answer is there is no way for us to do that. And so, yes, the states of Connecticut, New Jersey, and New York have established this travel advisory. If you visit one of 16 separate states, you'll see that on the screen. You are required upon return, or if you're traveling from those states, you're required upon coming to New York, New Jersey, or Connecticut to quarantine for 14 days. There is no easy way for us to know that. I will tell you that if you have done that or you have traveled, it is likely that somebody knows that, and someone is likely to notify the New York Forward website. There is a complaint form that one can issue, and yes, if a complaint is issued, you might have someone contact you to say, listen, this is the expectation. And as a reminder, that standard, that quarantine advisory does come with the potential for penalties if it's not adhered to. So we just ask you to please follow those guidances, and we respond as we are made aware. Patricia, when wedding venues open with somewhat increased capacity? Short answer is we don't know yet. And the same for Alexandra. Any update on gyms or malls? The answer is no. The state of New York, despite 10 days ago saying that they provided some guidance, they still haven't. There was this conversation that went on a little bit about air conditioning and air handling units at malls. There's been no science or data provided by the state to sort of make that a clear expectation, and so a clear standard. So we don't know yet what the state is planning to do. We have advocated for safe reopening. I mean, historically, a mall may very well have acted like its own little city, right? People congregate and what have you. Under the circumstances, I don't think anybody expects that a mall would open under those conditions, but rather limiting capacity. Maybe it's one or two exits or entrances. Maybe it's more by appointment. We have a salon that's 20 feet from the door of the mall, can't open because it doesn't have a direct access to outside. Yet a big box or multi-billion-dollar corporation that can pay for an outside door is open. So we think that there are ways to be safe about it. We're going to continue to advocate. Same for gyms and wedding venues. Todd, is there going to be a Think Differently picnic this year? I am sorry that there is not going to be our Think Differently picnic this year. We are taking a break. A lot of stress on a lot of families, difficulty with the providers in being able to transport individuals, and frankly, under the circumstances, it's just not it's not something we want to impose on anyone. So we're not going to have our picnic this year. Let's jump through a little bit more. I want to thank our contact tracers. Talked a little bit about that. 367 trained contact tracers. We have individuals who are volunteers and county employees, led, of course, by our Department of Behavioral and Community Health. I want to thank Dr. Anil Wythian and Deputy Commissioner Kathy Tetmeyer, along with all of our staff at the Department of Behavioral and Community Health, from our epidemiologists to our front office staff and hotline coordinators. Everyone has been working very, very hard, and our contact tracers have been hard at work really since the beginning of this epidemic or this pandemic. I mentioned the Medical Reserve Corps. We now have over 1,000 Medical Reserve Corps volunteers. That's over 500 individuals joining us in just the last 6 months, and together they have conducted over 5,000 hours of volunteer service in the first 6 months of 2020. Just a remarkable amount of volunteer work, and we're very, very grateful to them and to its director, Joe Ryan. Yes, I will say Joe Ryan again, which means someone will say Joe Ryan is the very best, and I won't take offense, but Joe Ryan is pretty cool, and we're grateful to the Medical Reserve Corps for all of the work that you're doing. So just as an update, we've been doing this with you as often as we can. We've engaged in ongoing conversations with a whole host of people. We've had our daily policy calls. So we assembled a whole response team that met every single day over these 100 plus days. That included department heads and countywide elected officials. Twice a week since the onset of this pandemic, we've held conversations with mayors and supervisors, had one again today. We're very grateful. You should know that all 20 towns, 8 villages, and 2 cities, regardless of party affiliation, length of tenure, they have all been working together collaboratively. And it's just a reminder that elected officials can actually work together when we choose to. And I just hope that we continue to choose to. And I'm very grateful to our partners, whether you're the Southern Dutchess quarter of our county, Eastern Dutchess, Northern Dutchess, Central Dutchess. All of our residents should be very, very confident in knowing that your supervisors and mayors have done just a remarkably steady and good job these last 116 days. Regular meetings with our hospital and healthcare system, some very tense and very challenging conversations that we've had. Great partnership with Nuvance, Westchester Medical Network, and our partners at CareMap, Premier, Pulse, and so many others. And we're very, very grateful for that. Our nursing home task force, led by a number of people, Mario Gonzalez, Ann Saylor, and so many others helping to coordinate. And we had a great response, and still do, with our folks at nursing homes across Dutchess County. That task force meeting regularly and walking through a number of issues together. Our faith-based calls continue to reach out to the faith-based community. Had just a conversation the other day. Again, regular conversation to provide assistance to the faith-based community, and really engaged with them along with our college presidents and the community and the colleges here throughout Dutchess County. A lot of very tense and difficult questions and issues to be addressed. Regular conversations with them. Of course, I think I've talked to school superintendents more in the last 116 days than I have in the last 8 years, and that's because we're all working together and have been working collaboratively. And you should know that there's been a great working relationship with them, along with their not-for-profit and business community. So we're grateful for all of that, and it's ongoing. We're going to continue these conversations. We're still moving forward with these conference calls. Have I heard anything about unemployment being extended, Marilyn? The short answer is not yet. Congress is in the midst of debating what to do next, so to speak. The unemployment benefit that the federal government approved ends at the end of July. Congress historically goes on recess for the month of August. We expect that Congress is going to make a decision on some of the existing benefits, unemployment, and also some consideration for state and local aid before they leave for their August recess. So we do expect by the end of July there will be a bill that's adopted by both houses. Now, we are encouraging you to join us in supporting some state and local aid. It is critically important. Counties like us have to have some financial assistance from the federal government. Otherwise, we're really facing significant losses. And we expect that will be determined before the end of July. Lee, are schools putting in new filtration systems? First, I want to be clear. The governor pointed to a filter. There is not science that says this particular filtration system will protect us from the transmission of any infectious disease. So please understand, while yes, it makes perfect sense to have good, clean, quality filtration systems, you should update your filters if you have them. There isn't a one, and there isn't a single one, and there isn't one that anybody can argue will successfully cease the transmission of the disease. Remember, COVID-19 travels on water droplets, and I know that's why some people argue about face coverings. It's not the size of the virus. The virus needs to travel on something. That something is generally a water droplet that gets sprayed from your mouth when you're coughing, singing, laughing, spitting, and in fact, I'll talk about spitting some other time. But nevertheless, it has to be able to travel on that, and there's no indication that an air handling system is more or less likely to transmit the disease. Dr. Wythian said this specifically to the health department. What are you pointing to that suggests that an air handling system increases the risk of transmission? And the answer is nothing. There is nothing that they can point to that says it increases the transmission of the disease. Certainly, a good, healthy filtration system does protect us from the transmission of lots of things. So schools there is not a directive to update any particular filtration or a directive to update to a specific filtration system, but we certainly encourage people to be smart about that. If you have one at home, you should update the filter. Carl, any word on youth football? The short answer is on Monday, July the 6th, youth football can have non-contact training, but no competitions as of yet. So that is the current guidance. Ray, can special needs summer school be modified to accommodate social distancing requirements or have split sessions? I mean, the short answer is a school district can do anything it wishes for summer school, but it is their decision. They are permitted to have in-person summer school programs. I think about 10 districts across the county that are providing some in-person summer school, but they're given that information, they're given that decision-making on their own. So they can choose not to, or they can choose to provide it. You have a right through your Committee on Special Education meetings to argue or to articulate for something. And just because they just said it can't happen doesn't mean you shouldn't argue for it to happen, but it is up ultimately to the school districts to provide those services and to make that decision. We mentioned Office for the Aging. We have our senior picnics in sort of an altered form coming up. We are 12 senior drive-up picnics going on throughout Dutchess County. We encourage you to visit. They start on July 28th. You're going to get an invitation in the mail if you're a senior citizen. And they're drive-through senior picnics. We're going to get you a great meal provided by a local business. We're buying only from local businesses, providing those meals. We thank our Office for the Aging staff, and you'll get an invitation to join us at our 2020 2020 drive-through senior picnics. The Office for the Aging has served 25,000 meals to senior citizens throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. That is a 350% increase before COVID. So 350% increase in the delivery of those meals since COVID-19 and the pandemic. And very, very grateful to our OFA volunteers and the staff of the Office for the Aging. Department of Emergency Response, led by Dana Smith, Deputy Commissioner Ken Roman, Emergency Manager Bill Beal, and all of the staff at the Department of Emergency Response, doing enormous amounts of work. We have secured and distributed 333,000 surgical masks, 111,000 fabric masks, 107,000 N95 and KN95 masks, 42,000 gowns, and 34,000 face shields distributed across Dutchess County, and it's still happening. We also are working, and the Department of Emergency Response has worked tremendously well with counties across the state. We've all been coordinating to the best of our ability, and we're very grateful to the Department of Emergency Response. As you know, we were planning for the worst. We worked with Nuvance and our local healthcare providers to prop up an off-site recovery center. This was going to provide us an additional 176 rooms, 457 new beds if we needed it. 50 medical professionals and volunteers participated in organizing that alternate care facility. And because of those efforts and because of the work that you've done to slow the transmission of the disease, luckily, we never exceeded hospital capacity, although it was getting pretty concerning throughout the pandemic. We're grateful to Nuvance and our friends at Dutchess Community College. Another great initiative, we worked hand in hand with the Sheriff's Office and a number of our partners to convert former temporary housing at the Dutchess County Jail facility into a homeless shelter. Worked remarkably well, where we were able to provide 24/7 services for 100 individuals. We're still using them. I understand there's a little bit of consternation, meaning, this is neighbors obviously have had to endure a little bit of sacrifice. We're grateful for that, but the service we're providing at this shelter, very, very important. It's one of the reasons, actually, we're hoping to demolish the 1984 county jail, because it'll allow us to convert the 1995 unit into something for housing to provide other services. But I will offer to you that the homeless shelter was a tremendous effort undertaken by the county in partnership with Hudson River Housing, Mental Health America, and our friends at Dutchess Outreach. And we're thankful to them. And again, to Sheriff Butch Anderson and the Dutchess County Sheriff's Office. Really worked remarkably well. You can see some of those photographs. Very, very grateful. The Department of Community and Family Services eliminated the family share requirement and increased eligibility to standards to assist more families with child care. We really broadened the envelope to be as open and helpful as we can. We offered subsidies to support providers, and we saw a huge increase serving 1,086 children. That's up from 543 as of we saw and are providing assistance to 1,086 children, 543 families, and that's as of June of this year. So we recognize the need to be of some assistance during this crisis with child care. So very, very grateful to all of our partners within county government. If you have a question, write it in the comment section below. Happy to answer your question. As I mentioned, we are heading towards Phase 4. Phase 4 will begin Tuesday, July the 7th. As I mentioned, we still don't have guidance on malls, theaters, gyms, or amusement facilities, amusement parks. We're waiting on those, hopeful that they come out soon. We've really asked the state to come forward with some guidance, but we will move forward with Phase 4 on Tuesday, July the 7th, as of this moment. I want to remind you that Saturday is the 4th of July, American Independence Day. I'm a big fan of Independence Day, not only for the fireworks, but listen, this is this country was born out of this radical belief that people were inherently provided certain rights, and the fact that this country, as imperfect as it was in its founding, has strived every day to be a more perfect union, has meant that even though we have never quite fulfilled that great American promise of ensuring that all men and all women be protected equally under the law. That has always been our struggle. It remains a struggle, and rightfully so, but it is a promise that we seek to fulfill. That's what we celebrate on Independence Day. And I'll offer, we don't celebrate America's flaws on Independence Day. We celebrate America's the exceptional effort that we have undertaken as citizens to challenge ourselves to be better, to challenge government to be better, and to state quite clearly that there are rights that are inherent and that governments are created to protect those rights. And on Saturday, July the 4th, we'll not only celebrate the very founding of this country, but we'll shoot off some fireworks as well. 3 simultaneous fireworks displays on the 4th of July. One at Dutchess Stadium, one at the Dutchess County Fairgrounds, and one at Silo Ridge in Amenia, Route 22. Gates open at 7:30 p.m., fireworks at 9:30 p.m. We're grateful to our partners at iHeartMedia and Central Hudson Gas and Electric, along with Eastdale Village and Mitch Neshawat and the Neshawat family. We're very grateful for your sponsorship of that event. Thankful to the Dutchess County Sheriff's Office, the Department of Emergency Response, Department of Public Works, and our partners in providing for this event. So again, gates open at 7:30, fireworks at 9:30, entirely car-based. We're asking you to stay in or immediately near your vehicle. Carry in, carry out, no alcohol. So whatever you bring into the park or into the event, please bring with you. Don't litter. Don't create more work for folks, many of whom are volunteering that evening. And again, I have to warn you, no facilities. This is sort of like if you're going to the ball drop at in Times Square, you get corralled in. There are no bathrooms. I just want you to know that. A lot of reasons why not, but be prepared for that. And I understand if that doesn't work for you, but if it does, please join us. Great fireworks display being done by Legion Fireworks, a Dutchess County business. Just a reminder, sparkler devices, ground sort of based fireworks, ground-based fireworks, are legal in New York State. You see them out and about. You can purchase them, but please be safe about it. We mean this sincerely. Fires, a lot of house fires, structure fires, forest-related fires do occur because of the improper use or unregulated use of even legal fireworks. So we're asking you to be safe about that. It is safer, obviously, to watch one of those professionally organized fireworks displays, which is one of the reasons we'll be having them. But always, always, always follow the directions on the packaging. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, there is and are directions on the packages. Look for that and follow them. And just because they say they're really big and really cool doesn't mean you need to shoot them all off at the same time. So please be safe about that. Use them outdoors only. Why I have to say that is beyond me, but it is apparently a problem. People think shooting off fireworks in their house or in a building is a good idea. It is not. We have enough trouble and challenges. Our career and volunteer firefighters do not want to come they will, but they don't want to have to be taken out because we set off fireworks in our homes. Don't do that. When you're setting them off, if you're the one lighting them, try to wear eye protection. If you have safety glasses or goggles, please make use of them. Why? Because that fuse, you may think, gives you a few seconds. Sometimes it doesn't, and you want to be safe about that. Never light them all off at the same time. Again, I'm sure that would look really cool, but it is really not safe. So please be considerate of that. And do not, under any circumstance, point fireworks off at people, yourself or anyone else. It was a disgusting thing to see what some were doing in New York City, firing off fireworks at individuals who are homeless. Even if you're not doing it with malintent, please, it is not a game. And I'm only offering this because we want you to be safe. We want the community to enjoy Independence Day. I am very known by anyone who is close to me that I do enjoy fireworks. I like a good fireworks display, but I like them to be safe, and I want you to be safe as well. I did purchase sparklers, and I am not going to throw them at people, and I encourage you to be safe about that as well. I apologize. It's Thursday, and we're getting punchy around here. When will the New York State Lottery office in Fishkill open? June? I don't know. That is still a state decision, and I'm not sure when those will be open. Why is Phase 4 the last phase when not all things are open? Clayton, your guess is as good as mine. We would argue that there are multiple phases. The state says Phase 4 is it. and that there are other things that don't necessarily fit in a phase, and they'll be opened up when they feel that they are safe to do so. That is the state of New York's decision, and that's where we are. If you have a question, add it to the comment section below. We'll go for a few more minutes. Happy to try to answer some questions, and I want to make sure that I've covered everything I said I was going to cover. I think I have exhausted fireworks, but I do want to mention to you that if you'd like to watch our fireworks display, you'll be able to follow on our Facebook page, so Dutchess County Government live stream. I think the Renegades as well, but just ours, Dutchess County Government. So if you want to stay home and watch fireworks, and again, I recognize that that does not sound as exciting as it sounds, but if you want to stay at home and you don't like the noise, or you just want to enjoy a little bit of a fireworks display, you can visit Dutchess County Government on Facebook, and we will live stream that those fireworks displays. Now, we've talked a little bit about it, and I want to reemphasize as you know, this is a very challenging moment in time. We recognize this. There are those, obviously, who have taken to the streets in protest. A riot is not a protest. This county wants to listen to people. We want to learn from one another, and we want to spend time talking with one another. We do not condone the destruction of private or public property. We don't, and it's not something that we can encourage or accept. We understand the need, the desire, and the right to speak out. We believe that you have every right to do so, and we recognize that after the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis, there was a reminder nationwide. Our heart was broken open, and that we as a country still every day strive to fulfill that American promise of equality for all under the law. As an effort to further that conversation, I spent a lot of time with a lot of community leaders who really want to be heard. They want a physical way to communicate very specifically the things that they believe our community should be addressing, and we want to do that. We've held over 100 town hall meetings in the last 8 years, and to those of you who have asked, yes, sometimes those town hall meetings are very specific to a class of people because we want to give a venue for individuals to speak. And believe me, for those of you, some of whom I've even heard complain, who say, this is, not broad enough. We're listening to you too. In fact, my responding and reading your comments is me listening to you. We want, however, as a community to have this engaged conversation. We feel it's critically important, not only at this time, but to build on the dozens of town hall meetings that the Human Rights Commission has had and the progress we've made in Dutchess. And I want to mention this. So for those who maybe don't know, Dutchess County was the first county in the state to engage countywide in crisis intervention, mental health first aid, de-escalation training for all police officers everywhere in the county. These are not all county employees. Every police agency participating in crisis intervention, de-escalation, and mental health first aid, administered in partnership with providers and through the Dutchess County Sheriff's Office. Every officer on the street, we made the commitment, only county in America, to make sure that that was available and that every officer on the street would have it. We partner with and provide mental health support to law enforcement, so law enforcement officials don't have to be social workers. Many times they will call our mobile intervention team to go out with social workers, with mental health providers, to go out and respond to an incident. This county established our Human Rights Commission, full-time Human Rights Commission, and our Human Rights Officer as a means of ensuring that countywide we would address this concern. We did that several years ago, and we were among the first counties in New York to ban the box, to make it easier for individuals who were formerly incarcerated or may have a criminal record to be considered for job employment. We did that. This county government did that. You did that, residents of Dutchess County. And for those county legislators paying attention, we did that with you voting for them. So you should know that we did those things. So that said, we want to further this conversation. We believe it's important. As you likely know, Governor Cuomo and President Trump, both, surprisingly, the two of them, signed executive orders mandating a review of certain police practices. We recognize the value and the importance of that. Sheriff Anderson is leading this effort, doing a great job coordinating with Ken Roman, our Deputy Commissioner, and our Criminal Justice Council, a review of all of our law enforcement policies and practices to modernize, to ensure that every agency has access to implicit bias training, as we said, de-escalation training, and other support to be sure that we're doing our best. If we're not striving to be better, we're not doing our jobs well. So we're all doing this, all police agencies in the county, and we're holding a listening session on July 7th. It's not going to be the only one. It isn't the only one we've had. It's not going to be the only one we're going to have. And there will be many other topics that we want to cover. On Tuesday, July the 7th, at 5:30 p.m. We're asking you to participate. This is a town hall listening session that is co-hosted by myself, Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney, the Dutchess County Commission on Human Rights, and the Northern Dutchess NAACP. Featuring a guest, former Secretary Jay Johnson. Jay is formerly a Dutchess County resident, grew up in Dutchess County. His family lives in Dutchess County. I'm very grateful that he's participating, and the goal here is to discuss the experiences of those people of color throughout our community, the good, the bad, the concerns, the anger, the questions, the ideas, the hopes, all of it. It's being moderated by Angela Henry. Angela is an accomplished a woman of color in our community who has moderated conversations like this in the past, a panel of people. And understand, we're not asking you to come listen to a panel. These are individuals, community leaders. Not many work for county government. Some do. Community leaders who will be available to engage in the conversation, to further the dialogue. And then elected officials from every town, village, and city have been invited to participate. And to date, we have everyone represented. That's never happened before. That is new. Every town, village, and city will be listening, we'll learn from one another, and we'll use that to inform our decision-making as we update our practices. And the Police Chiefs Association of Dutchess engages with our Criminal Justice Council in updating police and law enforcement practices. They'll be doing that in a collaborative way, as I said, led by the Sheriff's Office and Under Sheriff Kirk Imperati and Commissioner Ken Roman. Very valuable, important conversation. And I just would argue, we all should be soul searching. And that isn't to say that we don't all have area for improvement, and it isn't to say that everyone, simply because they have an opinion, is right. It just means at the end of the day, we all can do better, can't we? We can all do a little bit better, and I think that rather than dismissing, this is a moment in time where I think learning from one another is valuable and important. And if you're spending a lot of time explaining why it's not important, it is important, and that's why we encourage you to engage in the conversation. Kristen, are playgrounds open in Dutchess? Yes, they are. Dutchess County park playgrounds are open. Most municipal park playgrounds are open. Some they may have chosen because they're under construction that they're not open, but park playgrounds are open. We ask you to be safe. And where can you find information about increased capacity for churches, Lisa? If you visit dutchessny.gov, you can get to the New York Forward website to get additional information. And as I said, the rule for houses of worship at the moment is 50% internal capacity, and then external, however many you can house safely with social distance. There is actually, thanks to a court injunction, no limit on religious institutions having services outdoors, except the judge reaffirms the need to social distance and make use of face coverings. So that is all we have. We are over an hour, and I appreciate you hanging in there. So let me say this. Please look to us this weekend. If you can, join us for an Independence Day celebration. Please do. We certainly hope that you are safe. This is going to be the last presentation for this week. We'll be back with you next Wednesday around lunchtime. But in the meantime, stay safe, be well, and be kind to one another.